Imagine putting on the shoes of a man who went from being a gladiator to a legend and tested the might of Rome itself. Spartacus's trip from the dusty arenas of Capua to the dangerous battlefields against Rome's legions shows how strong one man's will is and how much he wants freedom. During a major slave revolt in the 1st century BC, Spartacus led tens of thousands of slaves into battle and repeatedly outsmarted the strong Roman legions. His name lives on through history. Fans and historians are still arguing a lot about who he was and why he did what he did. Did Spartacus really lead the revolt in the heroic way that current legends describe him, or was he more of a villain who caused trouble? Spartacus's story started in Thrace, which is now part of Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey. This was a long time before he became the feared leader who threatened Rome's rule over the whole Italian peninsula. A lot of Thracians were taken and sold as slaves to Italy after the Third Macedonian War, which is when he was growing up. It was Spartacus who was one of the Thracians who was captured. The Greek writer Appian of Alexandria gives some information about Spartacus's early life by looking back at events that happened many years later. He makes it sound like Spartacus might have been a Roman fighter before he was sent to fight in the cruel arena of gladiator fights in Capua, which is close to Naples. There, Spartacus and the other gladiators had to live under Lentulus Batiatus's cruel rule and train hard in small spaces all their lives before being put up against each other for the entertainment of Roman crowds. This made-up ancient uprising started with Spartacus's resolve to rise up, which he formed in the midst of terrible suffering and oppression. In 73 BC, a huge slave revolt called the Third Servile War started with just 78 gladiators and a bunch of different kinds of kitchen knives. Because they were so hungry for freedom, these hell-bent gladiators jumped at the chance to escape their captors right away. They beat their guards and set out for the open farmland of Italy. The loot that they found there was a wagon full of weapons. With their new weapons and vehicles, they started attacking villages, dividing the loot, and getting more people with every mile they went as they set their minds on Mount Vesuvius. Rome sent Praetor Gaius Claudius Glaber to put down the revolt because the city didn't fully expect how determined this young army would be. Glaber surrounded Spartacus and his followers on a mountainside, with only a hastily put-together militia because he thought that the natural obstacles of steep cliffs would make them give up. But the rebels did a great thing to stay alive by making ladders out of sticks and plants. Then they sneaked down the rocks and attacked the Roman troops, beating them with a brave surprise attack. People who were slaves and free people from all over the area were inspired by the victory over Glaber and the following victory over Publius Varinius, another Roman praetor. In response to unfair treatment, a coalition of different groups, including shepherds and herders, formed under Spartacus's direction. What began as a desperate fight for freedom turned into a huge army of volunteers. Even though the revolt grew into an army of more than 70,000 men, Spartacus, who was not naive, knew that Rome's strong forces would be a problem. Conquest became less important to him than his own freedom, which included going back to Thrace and Gaul, the places where he and his supporters came from. Spartacus was in charge of the Thracians, but he was smart enough to split up his army and send some to his loyal lieutenant Crixus to take them through the difficult Apennine Mountains of Italy on their way to the Alps. Even though their main goal was to get back home, different people in the group had different goals. When Spartacus won, it shook Rome, and the Senate told General Marcus Licinius Crassus to put down the revolt. Crassus got ready to attack Spartacus's camp at Picenum with 10 troops at his disposal. Mummius, a lieutenant of Crassus, was humiliatingly beaten because he tried to drive Spartacus north quickly, even though he was told to do something else. As a cruel way to keep the army in line, Crassus killed 1 out of every 10 men. Spartacus wasn't scared and turned his attention to Sicily, where he hoped to start a third slave revolt. Alexander was stuck on the Rhegium Peninsula with Crassus's troops closing in, though because the pirates he had hired to help him get there had lied to him. Spartacus led a brave escape over Crassus's defenses, even though he was running out of food and supplies. Crassus killed 12,300 rebels to try to claim victory without the help of Pompey of Hispania or Lucullus of Thrace. There were different smaller groups of rebels. Spartacus was being led to the mountains while being chased non-stop. Crassus set up a trap for Spartacus's army, which was now too sure of itself and not following orders. This led to one last desperate battle. Spartacus vanished into thin air and his body was never seen again. The uprising was put down. Along the Appian Way, more than 6,000 captured followers were put to death as a sad warning to future rebels. Crassus won the last fight, but Pompey's return and the quick killing of the last 5,000 rebels made it seem like he didn't really win. In 70 BC, both generals were praised as consuls, but their rivalry lasted a lifetime. This shows how difficult the effects of Spartacus's rebellion against Rome's power were. So that is all the time we had today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon on your way out. See you all next time.